Hello and welcome to the Ratnest podcast. I'm Matt Paramo and this is Jim Cox.
Hey guys.
And today we're here with Vashmere Valentine.
Hey! Very nice to meet you, Vashmere. Thank you so much for catching up with us today, bro. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, guys. You guys are awesome.
Vashmere is a very talented screenwriter, director, and writer of many great, amazing projects. We're very blessed to have him here with us today. As I said, man, thank you so much for making the time to sit down with us.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's a dope podcast, and I'm just happy to be here, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, it's not often that we get to talk to someone so multifaceted. You have a lot of different stuff that covers a lot of different creative platforms, which is interesting. And I'm going to have like 10,000 questions for you about every aspect of this shit. But I guess let's start at the beginning, man. So you're based in Atlanta now.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you grow up there or was that a recent move, or where'd you start off? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Philadelphia and spent most of my time there. There was a small gap in between that I had traveled around from Baltimore to Los Angeles for a little bit, but I wound up finding myself in Atlanta because I wanted to really truly pursue the film career. Mm-hmm. And I was advised that one of the best ways to do it at that time was, of course, to go to school. And because Atlanta was one of the places that was really popping at that point for film, that was the place that I had found myself at.
And how many years ago was that?
7.
Okay.
Dang, okay. All right. So you're a true Atlantean now. You've gotten into the culture there, I'm sure, then.
Yeah, I mean, the shirt says enough.
I was going to ask, so because you said you lived in Philly and then you lived in LA and Baltimore and a couple other places. Was it, I mean, what made you choose Atlanta over somewhere like LA to pursue film?
Probably because right now it's one of the biggest places in terms of tax credits in the industry. And that's driving a lot of traffic towards Atlanta. A lot of productions are out here now, saving a lot of money, making productions. I think Louisiana just announced that they had made, or they are planning on making a huge tax credit, but I know Atlanta right now is one of the largest. So that was definitely one of the main reasons that I decided to come here. And of course, you guys, the land, obviously, there's a lot of open spaces and a lot of smaller businesses that are just starting to realize the potential that working with film companies has, and they're more open to working with smaller productions in a place like Los Angeles, where they kind of have seen everything and done everything. Sure. So it's kind of like you go to them and you're like, hey, I'm making this awesome film. And they're kind of like, yeah, you and everyone else.
Yeah.
Whereas Atlanta, it's kind of like you can go to like a bakery, right? Like a neighborhood bakery and say, hey, this would be awesome for the scene. And we're making it. And we have a lot of money. We just have this. And they're like, just do it. Come on. It's be awesome. We love film.
Oh, right.
So you really find that love that still exists there for film. Whereas though in Los Angeles, like I said, they're so used to it. I mean, Bruce Willis driving down the street in a fast-paced car wouldn't impress anyone in Los Angeles at this point. They've seen everything. So this is definitely a really great area to make new friends, for lack of a better term, with business partners and things like that.
That's rad, man. I know I have heard that Georgia is really blowing up as far as kind of the next Hollywood as with it. And it's interesting to hear that it's all driven by the tax credits.
It is. And it's also, it's crazy to think that for years now, there has been these production companies like Made in Georgia that do big projects. People have seen shows like Archer or I don't know, Bob's Burgers, some of the like cartoons and stuff. And then also some major productions that are all based in Atlanta and have been for years. But no one really thinks of that area, I guess, as like an equivalent to LA yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's getting there though. It's definitely getting there quickly too. I was watching this documentary. I'm not too sure what the name of it was, but it was just showing some of the different areas where there's like these small towns, and The Walking Dead came and maybe shot a scene in there, or a couple of scenes or whatever may have you, and they had like a before and after, and you could just see how much that little town grew in that little bit of time, just because people were coming to see the attractions and things like that, and they wanted to be a part of it. And I think Georgia kind of realized that at a certain point, was like, we need to have more of this.
Yeah.
And now they're realizing just how much of a benefit it is, because people definitely love to go. I don't know how many times I went to go um, to Los Angeles to visit the home of Marty McFly, right?
Oh, yeah.
How many people? How many people have gone to New York City to see the Ghostbusters headquarters, right? Like that firehouse.
The firehouse, yeah.
Legendary. So it just people want to see these places. They want to believe that they exist, and being able to do it really brings a new fan base and tourists, if you would, to that area, and it helps. It really does.
I just saw the show on Netflix called The Watcher. Did you watch that series?
Oh yeah.
Did you? So, and then I read an article just this week that said like the town in Jersey or wherever they filmed it, the actual house that's the exterior facade that they used in the whole show is getting like overwhelmed by tourists. And granted, it's like a true crime kind of unsolved mystery story, but it is crazy just how a show or a movie can blow a spot up like that, and that it just makes it so iconic, and people flock to go there. Chicago PD or Chicago Fire, people go take pictures in front of those places, and it's so wild.
I heard the place that they filmed the Christmas Story, the original one, is literally like a historic house now, and they have like the lamp, the leg lamp from the film in the window, but it's I mean, I grew up watching films like that, and just to know that those places are actually somewhere that I can go, it kind of makes it less of a dream and makes it more of a reality. And I think that's why people love it. And I mean, even more so than that, think about the money that it brings in from people wanting to come see it, and what that does for the local area. Definitely,
man. It sounds like Georgia made kind of the right move. It's like they saw that LA was becoming way too much industry. You know what I mean? It's just hardcore industry. And it sounds like they saw a community, that's wrapped around, at least based off of what you're saying. Am I right in thinking that, where the vibe, I guess the question is, what's the main difference that you saw from working in LA and working before you went to Atlanta and kind of got to experience the movie industry there?
I would say, I had this when I first came to Atlanta. Everyone was calling it like the new Hollywood, and I was like I think I was one of the few people that just disagreed with it. And the reason is because my history with film in Los Angeles is that it was almost like the same as like a terrible marriage, right? So every year, film in Los Angeles would get into a little fight, and film would leave and go cheat on it with another city. and it literally would work out that way, because it would be like this. I remember Philadelphia was the area, right? So at that point, film was cheating with Philadelphia, and we had the Philadelphia movie, and we had like these M. Night Shyamalan, like all these films were being made. And then I remember it was one point in time, it was San Francisco. And Francisco had all these films being made there, and it was New York. So it seemed like every 2 years, film in Los Angeles would get into this argument, and film would say, I'm leaving, and it would go and it would stay in an area for a while, and then it would come back, right? And it would come back, and it would make amends. This is the first time it just didn't come back.
Yeah. Because
I guess it was the food. I guess it was the soul food or something, because they just didn't go back. And that it took me a while to realize that. I was like, wait, film, like you're staying here? And I was like, no, I'm good. It's perfect here. And I was like, oh, so this is new to me, because I was one of the diehard people that believed that, okay, this maybe lasts maybe 2 or 3 years, and then they're heading back to Los Angeles, and then this place will kind of like die off, and it hasn't. I do believe a lot of that is because of the tax credit, but I think it's also too because the Georgians are just really good people. They're just really good people. The South really has really decent people that really truly have a love for film. The actors out here are amazing. The people are amazing, and it's almost like you guys make it fun to film here. It's not like a shut door policy where you guys see us coming. You're like, oh no, here comes those film guys again, and you like slam the door before we get there. You guys are like, you're filming something cool, bring it. You know, that's just a good feeling to be wanted. You know?
Hell yeah, that's super cool, man.
Absolutely, especially when it's gotten so cold. Like we grew up in California, Southern California, so we're an hour outside of LA, and so we've seen kind of like that LA mentality, not just through film, but in like kind of music and art and all this stuff. It is a very like it's seen kind of gatekeepery.
Right.
If
you're in the clique, you want to keep everybody else out, and so that they don't get to take your thunder within the clique or something.
Yeah, or else you got to like you're not proven yet, or you got to like it's not open arms. Hollywood isn't welcoming with the open arms,
Right.
So
right.
It's cool to hear that it's different on that side of the country there.
Oh yeah.
So
It's definitely a change.
Let's go into your experience and your contribution, to like the film industry. You've got a dope ass award-winning short film, The Wisp and the Wish, right? Am I saying that right?
The Wish and the Wisp. Yes,
dude.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah, my bad. I swip swapped the P and the H. Dude, that thing was awesome. It got sent over to me, and I took a look at it beforehand, and I watched it twice, bro, just to like the vibe of it, the music, the way that it all just flows so well on top of the well-written story there, man. I just have to start by saying kudos to you for that, and congratulations on winning the awards that it did.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot, trust me.
Now, was that a story that you knew, or like a folklore that you already had, or did you come up with that concept and like create that from scratch?
That actually, so the funny story behind that is that so I've literally been writing these fantasy stories since I've been a child. The first one I actually wrote, I was 6 years old. I couldn't even write. My mother, I had to dictate it to her. It was a long time ago. And from that point forward, I just was writing these stories. I would just come up with these stories. And I think it was around the age of like maybe 18 or 19, I came up with the story of The Wish and the Wisp. And I just literally sat on it. I probably, if you guys see all this stuff behind me there, if I turned this around, you would see a box. That's probably about, I would say, yay high. That's just full of notebooks, and they're literally just filled with stories. And believe it or not, the Wish and the Wisp was at the very bottom of it because it was the one I didn't like the most.
Oh shoot!
And yeah, when I was in college, we had to come up with a thesis film, and that was the one project that I was like, I'll pitch this because I don't really care about it too much. And I went home, I went inside the box, I pulled it out, and I went to school the next day, and I pitched it, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is cool! This is amazing!" And I was like, "Uh-oh, like, make this thing." And as I just started going through it and working with everyone, my fellow classmates, I realized like, wow, this is really good. Like, this is a lot better than I think. And then it wound up, doing as well as it did in film festivals, and that really it was surprising to me because how, as creators, we're always hard on ourselves about everything that we make, and that was the one thing that I was almost sure no one would like or enjoy, and it wound up being one that a lot of people like.
Man, that seems to be a common thread, bro.
I was just gonna say that.
In the last 3 seasons that we've done, there's been 1 or 2 artists every single season that says, the piece that I didn't like the most, or the song that I didn't like, or that I liked the least, is the one that blew up, And it just goes to show, as artists or creative people, it's not your opinion of the art that you're creating that really matters. It's whatever, just your obligation is to create it and put it out and let people decide if it's good or bad or if they like it or not. Because if we choose to only put out the things we like, we might be depriving the world of a Wish and the Wisp, which they wanted,
Absolutely. It definitely taught me a valuable lesson. And even from till this day, I'm still realizing that I don't have control over that, and nor should I feel like I do have control over what people like and what they don't like.
Dude, tell me a little bit about just the actual production of it, because obviously time and effort and love went into this short film you made. It looks great. First off, if I could describe it to people that haven't seen it, go watch it. But the art direction, the cinematography, the set design. You're working with kid actors, and you wrote and produced and directed this, right? So, I mean, tell me a little bit of like the inside story of like what goes into a production like this.
Well, this one was a little unique because it was a part of our thesis for school for my class. So it was my baby, my film, and we worked with a lot of terrible equipment at that time, unfortunately. So there was that, and then the second thing is that our budget for this project was literally $300. And that was from me going around and collecting the money to be able to get it to make some of the things in here work. So like some of the Wisp's outfit actually is completely made of components from a thrift store.
Wow.
Like the jacket, everything he's wearing. His facial makeup is parts from Etsy. So I went on there and found a whole bunch of different, makeup and costume things, and had that shipped over again on a $300 budget. So it's funny because I and as much as I appreciate what you guys are saying, I watch it sometime and I cringe because I as a filmmaker, you always want something to be a lot better, right? You saw the vision in your mind, and to see it where it got, it's really good because I feel good because I know that you can see it. And not to go off track, but it's funny because I had another friend at a film. This is actually this is a true story. So I went to a film festival. It was actually Dragon Con. It was a Dragon Con in the city of Atlanta. I got in the Dragon Con.
Yeah.
For a geek like me, it was like the greatest thing in the world. So I'm sitting in there and I'm at Dragon Con, and next to me is a guy from South Carolina. And he actually had won $20,000. I believe it was $20,000 to make a short film. So he has this $20,000 short film up there. And then of course I have my little $300 rinky dinky film. And he didn't win. And he was the type of guy that did not have an issue with showing his emotion on his face. I mean, he clearly showed that he was upset about it. Me, I was just happy to be there, right? I was just like, this is Dragon Con. I can't wait to get done with this part so I can go around and take a picture with Chewbacca.
Yeah.
But he was so angry. And one thing I had realized at that point was that you can have all the money in the world. That's not necessarily what you're being judged about. And on certain projects, you're being judged about everything else. And when I had a chance to speak to some of the people that pulled that short and put it on, the things they told me, they were like, we could see you cringing on certain parts of the film where like you may see a little bit of makeup, you may see it falling off, and no one cared about that because we were pulled into the story.
Exactly.
And it kind of just settled my soul to know that people were more interested in than the $20,000 film, which of course has this wizard and his hat. And I don't know if he'll ever realize, but it definitely touched my heart to realize that you guys and the true fan base were more interested in from the originality of it than, because with a $300 budget, I went into that thing imagining that it was going to be 30 times worse than what it was, and it wasn't.
No, it turned out great, man. And to find out that you only had a $300 budget on that makes it even more incredible, to be honest with you.
Insane, dude. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, the film treatments alone, like it's cohesive. It doesn't look like it's, shot in different parts with different lighting, and, for $300, it's insane. It's mind boggling.
But I do have to say, and I agree with you, or whomever your friend was, I got sucked into the story immediately. And that's why I asked if this is a tall tale from history that's already folklore, because it already automatically has that vibe of like, oh, this is an old timey story, like from back when, before electricity and before things, like there was these stories that would come about. And this definitely had that feel, and I got sucked right into it. You know what I mean? And I have to say, I really like the ending. I don't want to give it away or spoilers or whatever, but I really liked the ending, the way that you allowed me to be a part of it, kind of, you know what I mean, or make my interpretations. It was great, man. It was really awesome.
Yeah. Also, just throwing this out there. I was talking to Jim earlier. It doesn't make sense that it was a $300 budget still, because the first thing I said was like the house that they shot this in, or like the the set design. Whoever was in charge of that, clutch,
perfect.
Yeah, like it reminded me too. Also, the way it was scored. I'm not sure if you had anything to do with the scoring of the film, or if that was someone separate, and then you guys came together on it.
It was. His name's Colin Derrick. He's amazing too, by the way. I'll give him a shout out real quick.
Hell yeah. No, they rule. Right. The initial thought for me, like you were saying, like, people go to the firehouse from Ghostbusters. When I started watching your short film, it had serious like Peter Pan, like Hook vibes almost. Like that little kid's bedroom with the type of windows that are in that room. And then the way it was scored, it almost has like a Home Alone kind of like Christmas vibe during the happy parts, and more of like a Halloween-y kind of like breakdown during some of the like darker parts. But it's completely emotional driven, and it tugged at my heartstrings as like a 35-year-old who grew up watching Peter Pan and those kind of movies. But was that intentional? Was there anything intentional with the way that the set was done, how the shots are done, or was that just like, am I just associating that myself?
If you sound like one of my friends, because my friends know that I am an 80s baby, and literally I grew up, my mom hated violence. If someone swore in a movie, my mom would be like, it's going on.
Same.
So literally everything that was put in front of me was the never ending story. In any fantasy film you can think of, Princess's Bride literally was on my TV set just playing over and over again. So as a filmmaker, that's literally all I know. That's literally all I know are those films. So as a filmmaker, what those films did for me is literally what my mission statement is to hopefully be able to capture that and give it back again. And just to hear that you felt that's probably the best thing I've heard in like a year.
Yeah.
That's literally, it is. I mean, it's somebody else gets it. They saw that that's literally the type of films that I want to make for the rest of my life. And the fact that you got that from there is amazing, because that's literally everything that I put into that.
Hell yeah, dude. That rules. Like
it shined through, bro. It really did.
And for our generation, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that was the height of movie making, because everyone can argue their generation was like the best movies ever made. But your generation is always going to be the one that speaks to you the most, right? So when you're in those pivotal years as a kid and you're watching those movies, that's what you're going to relate everything else you see in life to, is those cartoons and movies and television shows from when you're a young dude. So I'm glad that was maybe not intentional, but that's where some of that comes from. That's awesome to hear, man.
Definitely. That was literally everything I put into that. Even the Wisp character. So I would say I literally was trying to pay homage to Tim Burton, Steven Spielberg, really those filmmakers of the past. And I was hoping that they would see it and be like, oh, wow, this kid gets it. And hopefully see that what they did paved the way for what I'm trying to do.
It's like just a tad short of being like David Bowie in Labyrinth when he pops up.
Yes.
Same vibe.
Yes, because we couldn't get him.
Yeah. He was unavailable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is funny. It's funny too. So and it's funny you mentioned it, because there was actually a scene where he had a cane. So I went online and found this magic stick cane, and literally like he could hold the cane and it would move around his hand. He could grab it, and it was like this really thin wire that he would attach to his wrist and do it. So there's your David Bowie scene.
With
but the
ball,
it snapped. Yeah,
that's so funny.
Snapped, and I had to scratch it. Yeah, but that literally, and of course the Muppet, which is in the film as well. That's my nod to Jim Henson and his crew. So yeah, it definitely was. It's my homage to all those films.
I almost forgot about the Muppet.
Dude, the 80s was seeded all over that film, bro. It was just poked in every direction that you can. It was, that vibe, that feeling, just it stood out. It was so. We were talking about it at lunch right now before we came up to do the interview, like just about how you captured the essence of that type of filmmaking, even with like the filters that you used on the production, you know, the post-production, like it just helped add to that homage.
Yeah, I played the puppet too, by the way. Most people don't know that, but that was me. I voiced that.
Give yourself one of these, bro.
All those motions. That's what years of Sesame Street will do to you. It'll turn you into a professional puppeteer.
So speaking of Muppets, I mean, you have to have a favorite 80s project that contains these little fluffy creatures that we've all come to love. Was it Fraggle Rock? Was it Sesame Street? You know, what was it?
All of them. Definitely Labyrinth. If I had to choose one, I'd have to say Labyrinth. And Dark Crystal. I'm so sorry.
Dark Crystal rules. Crystal. Very underrated. A lot of people haven't seen that, or if they did, they're like, it was like a little much. It is a lot darker, but Labyrinth kind of like leans on that like real dark side of being family friendly too.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. It does. I have a funny story. When I had decided that we were going to make the Wish and the Wisp, I had visited the Jim Henson. There's like there's a museum downtown in Atlanta that was displaying Jim Henson's work, and I said I might get lucky and, you know, find somebody that works there that might make this puppet for me, right? Because the plan was to have a little Wisp pop out of the box, so it was supposed to look like him. It was supposed to wear the same outfit that he did, and physically have the cat-like appearance. Of course, that was me dreaming. So I thought I might get lucky and find someone there. So I went there, and at the time they were putting on the display of Jim Henson's puppets, and I had never seen these things in real life. And although I didn't get a chance to meet someone there, I think at that point in time they had a display for the Dark Crystal, and the guy was like, "Do you want to go see it?" And I was like, "I'm a college student, dude." I said, "I don't have the money for that." Like, I think the tickets were like 40 or something, and I was just getting by on noodles. And he said, "Come on, man, we'll take you."
Dope.
And he literally walked me through whole, and I cried the whole time, literally, because this is the first time I'd ever seen this man. This man I admired work. It was the first time I seen how big the actual Muppets were, and you know, saw how they were made. And literally, like, if that guy, and I know he'll probably tell me anyway, so I figure I'm telling now. But I literally cried through the whole entire tour. It was funny. It was just me. It was me and them two, and they were like, "Dude, you got to stop crying." And I was like, "No, I can't help it." I was like, "You don't understand this. This man literally changed my life. This man literally like paved the way for me to create just like the Wish and the Wisp." I mean, all of those things came from staying up at night back in the day when Jim Henson used to have he used to have a special that used to come on. I think it was like every Sunday night.
I remember that.
Little tales. Yeah. So things like that are literally where the Wish and the Wisp came from. And so going through that exhibit and seeing that, it was so emotional for me.
So
I get emotional now thinking about it.
Yeah,
it's all right, man.
That's dope that it actually like has such an emotional, like visceral response within you, bro. Like that's where true art comes from, is those types of memories, those, you know, impressed moments that will never leave you, that you think about and you can relive in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say, with your love of these like 80s films and obviously having this connection to the fun, like the more fun and whimsical and kind of fantasy side of it, like, are all of your stories like kid story fairy tales like the Wisp and the Wish, or did you go more sci-fi? Like, did you explore all of those different avenues? Did you ever say, you know what, I'm going to do opposite of this and try and write a horror film or something like that? Or have you found yourself kind of living in that, for lack of a better term, living in that fantasy world?
Mm-hmm. At one point I had felt that way, but then I had realized that my knowledge base of those films was so far that I could attempt to make them like I did with the Wish and the Wisp. So funny note is so whenever I grew up and I watched these shows, I always had this impression in my mind, well, I could do it. So for instance, when I saw the Berenstein Bears and I thought that was the greatest thing in the world, I was like, well, I can make one too. So I came up with the Bigfoot's family. So whenever I saw something, it was always and almost like innate in me to say, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it just like they did it. So my ability to write and come up with new concepts stems from that. So there were other projects that I had created. I had created one from my love for Monster Squad. I had created my own version of Monster Squad. So that was one that I have now, which is like a horror film, but it's like a horror action film. And that film it follows along the side of Monster Squad, but it has its own new characters. It's kind of introducing its own Freddy, its own Jason, but it also has this element of people being able to use them. So there's that project. There's another project, a sci-fi project called Space Bully, Bully of the Universe, and I really love that project because there's in this universe, if you would, this kid becomes one of the most strongest beings, but there's different tiers of universes. So the first tier, everything is like the 80s. You got like your 80s robots, like everything is like pretty much, it's almost like the poor version of a galaxy.
Okay.
But then the next one up is more like your Star Trek, right? So then you've got like, your visors, you've got like your more advanced robots and things like that. And then there's another tier. And then that tier is like stuff that people have never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to go through these different tiers in order to truly become the one, if you would. But I thought that project is funny and kind of relates to what you said, because each of those different tiers are like a different period of time that we've seen different sci-fi.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's like different. It seems like whenever I come up with a project, it's like I'm always trying to thank the film gods that came before me to make those projects, because everything that I create is always usually based on something like that.
I have a question that's a little bit more, I guess, production than conceptual, but how many different ideas and how many different things that you're writing or projects that you're working on or that you're a part of are going on at one time?
That's a good question. So I have, I would say roughly around 20 projects right now.
Wow.
And I would say that the one thing that I that would be an amazing thing. I am in a position to be quite frank with you guys, where people don't know what to do with me. A lot of the projects that I've written, one of the things that I suppose works against me, if you would, is that I'm really blind when it comes to race. So there are characters that I've created throughout my life that are either Caucasian or Indian, and people like, I have a Spanish superhero film that I created, wrote, and everything. It's amazing, but people don't know how to really feel from it, because I create these characters and they're like, well, why aren't they black? And I'm like, because I didn't see them black when it popped in my head.
Right.
And I'm not the type of person that's going to change what I saw just to suffice my own, my own people's wants. There's this one book, and you guys are really digging now. So I'll and hopefully the one day people will remember you guys are the first ones to hear this.
Hell yeah.
So a very long time ago, again, telling you guys that I create content, that I see something and I love it. And it's funny you mentioned Peter Pan. So I actually created my own Peter Pan, and it was called The Dream Stowaway. And it's pretty much, The Dream Stowaway is pretty much just, it's a kid Sandman. He's literally a Sandman. He's just a boy. And what he does is, if you put a toy underneath your bed at night, he'll see the toy, and he'll be like, all right, this is a cool kid. So what he does is he'll blow dream sand in your face, and he'll take you away to a place where you can play all night while your parents think you're still at home asleep. And then before the sun comes up, he brings you back home, and you go back into your body, and your parents don't even know that you were playing all night. So I originally created this character, one, for the love of Peter Pan, but two, I was like, this might be a really cool way for parents to get their kids to fall asleep. Because it's like one of those things where your kid can't go to sleep, and you're like, oh, you better go to sleep or the dream stowaway won't come. And they're like, oh, so they rush upstairs. So I created this character, and this character was white. I didn't know any better. Peter Pan was white. I didn't see a difference between making the dream stowaway white. So I came out with this character. I put it out. This is the true story. So I self-published the book myself. It was like a 42-page rhyme book, and I put it on Facebook. Right now, as soon as I put it on Facebook, when I was going to put it on my Facebook, I literally got, I almost want to say threats from my friends. I was like, you can't write a book about a white kid. You can't do this. You can't do this. It's terrible. And of course, me, I was like, I don't care. I don't see the difference. So they literally made me come up with a almost like a pen name for myself, which if you Google right now, that pen name is Christopher Jonathan Pumpkins. So in order to protect myself, I came up with a character whose name is CJ Pumpkins, which was based on some of the things I love most. So his name was Christopher Jonathan because I was a huge fan of Winnie the Pooh. Mm-hmm. And then the Pumpkins comes from my love for the great pumpkin Charlie Brown. So I came up with this Christopher Jonathan Pumpkins name, and I literally started a Facebook page for him. Now, when I started putting up pictures of the Dream Stowaway, everybody and their grandmother added this guy as a friend. And I'm not talking about anyone. I'm talking about there were professional children books writers that were adding these guys. Do you know, you ever heard of the Spiderwick Chronicles?
Yeah.
It was a really popular,
huge popular children's book. Yeah.
About it. Now, they're two of his friends on Facebook. So it's, he literally has, like, you wouldn't believe the type of children book authors are friends of his because they respected his work.
Wow.
So before the release of the book came out, I said, you know what? And that, of course, people are excited. In fact, I still have this email. Someone messaged me on Facebook and thought that because this was during the time that J.K. Rowling was on her break, they literally thought Christopher Jonathan Pumpkins was a new pseudonym for J.K. Rowling.
Oh, wow.
This is, I lie to you not. This really happened. So the day before I was going to release the book, I was like, you know what? It's not about race. It has nothing to do with race. So I said, I'm going to put a picture of me up there, like introducing me, CJ Pumpkins. I did that, and immediately the next day, half of those people unfriended me.
Wow.
Literally. I would say it wasn't even half. It was like 80% of the people unfriended me. And then the book, of course, did terrible from sales after that. And it kind of just fell off after that.
Was there any like messaging or back and forth that like gave you any clues of why these people were unfriending you, or that they just they thought you were this
J.K.
other
Rowling's,
author, yeah, or like any author? Or do you think it was deliberately because it was a racial thing? Like that's nuts, dude.
That was the only thing that I could contribute it to, because literally as soon as I posted, because he didn't have a picture then.
Yeah.
So at that point, it was just like, it was boom. And for me as a person, I just figured, I was like, I don't need to be the face of this guy. In my mind, CJ Pumpkins was just going to be like a Santa Claus.
Right. But you want the words to be CJ Pumpkins. Like, it doesn't matter who, what you look like, right? It's the story.
Exactly. It was for kids. It was literally for kids. So if your kid got it, the last thing I wanted you to do as a parent was to allow what your thoughts were about me as a person physically to stop that kid from enjoying really good literature if they had the opportunity. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's never been a concern about that. But once it did kind of, it put a nasty taste in my mouth, but it didn't stop me. But for years, people were always like, oh, do you know CJ Pumpkins, or have you heard of CJ Pumpkins? And the whole time I would be like, yeah, it's me. But no one ever knew. Like no one ever knew. So after that, I had published another book under CJ Pumpkins' name. And this one was called Michael's World of Wishes. And it was about a kid that had cancer who went to this magical world on a map. And it was really deep. It was really cool. It was dope. And I had sent like 200 copies to a children's hospital. And then just like no one ever heard of it again. But it's funny because if you go on Facebook and you look up CJ Pumpkins, you will see this old white guy with like a big beard and stuff like that. So he still exists as an entity and people are still adding him and stuff. But like, it's funny that nobody knows that, but now you guys do. But yeah.
Dang, you heard it first here on Ratnest.
Yeah. we don't have that big of a reach, so only a couple hundred people might know this after today. But no,
dude, what
man,
a
that's
crazy
nuts.
story, though, man. I
you're
really
the first, though. You guys are the literally like, aside from my very close like group of friends, you guys are the first people like.
Oh yeah, dude.
Know about that situation. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, man. It's wild as hell.
Yeah. We're gonna put this episode out with an AKA CJ Pumpkin.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Dude, well, so
but to answer.
Go ahead.
To answer your first question, it's weird because that's the space that I am, because a lot of people don't believe that I have created the stuff that
Mhm.
I've created. So they don't know where to take me. So I kind of find myself in this weird area in the industry where the African American filmmakers are like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what you're doing over here. Like, this stuff's weird. But then some of the other filmmakers are like, wait, whose side are you on? What team are you playing on? And I'm just the
Right.
guy over here that's like, no side. I don't care. Like, I
Hmm.
just want to make films. So it's like this weird place where people are just kind of like, I don't know how to take this guy, you know?
Yeah,
Well,
that
it's fucked up
it
because
is.
I feel like the market, or I don't, I'm not close into your industry, but from an artist standpoint in general, I've seen it happen to different people and different friends where it's almost like you have to take a strong stance on something to make your stuff relevant instead of just being judged by the content that you make, or what you write or what you
Mm-hmm.
paint or whatever it is. It's like, why does it all have to be so divisive? Why does it all have to
Mhm.
be like one way or the other? It's crazy.
It is, and and it's I've been battling with this battle for, I would say, the past 5 years, because people will see my content and they'll be like, "Oh, this is great, this is amazing," but like, who wrote this? And I'm like, "It's me," and they're like, "Nah, you didn't write this. There's no way." Like, I literally had, this is a true story too. At the end of a viewing at the Wish and a Wisp, there was a gentleman that literally walked up to me and said, no offense or anything, but you want to be careful when you steal people's stuff like that, because if somebody finds out you use those rhymes, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, all the rhyming in the story. You can't do that. You can't use like a writer's word. And I was like, dude, I made those rhymes. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Who's gonna sue you?
And he was
Hans
like,
Christian Andersen?
it's like, yeah, like, and he literally looked me in my face, guys, with this, like, he was dead serious. He was like, no, you didn't. He just literally looked me in my
Damn.
face and was like, no, you didn't.
So,
And I was like,
bro,
I
I
don't know what
see
to
it
tell you, bro.
that type of like
It's crazy.
it could be taken two ways, right? You can look at it and go like be offended by the fact that these people are not seeing you as able to do that, or you can take it as the biggest compliment because you're able to like
Mm-hmm.
pull one over on these people, for lack of a better term. They think that it's this, they imagine what it is in their head and they build it up because of the content and because of the emotion in the story and because of the rhymes. They build it up to be this thing. And just because they have a different, image in their head of who you are, like you have created that, dude. That is like you embodied the Wisp and you took away their wish. You know what I'm saying? Like they had this idea and you just rolled up like, hey, I'm going to get my wish one day or another. I have to say that is like, that's impressive to me. And I see the difficulties that it could add to your journey. But I also see how that difficulty can be flipped on its back and be a catalyst for you in so many ways, because now you're not allowing these stereotypes to guide you. It sounds like you've chosen not to listen to them and just keep doing what you're doing and keep providing the art that you provide, whether or not people create an image in their head about it or not. And that's like the truest form of self art right there. So, dude, I'm impressed with this story. I'm not gonna lie.
I appreciate it. It means a lot to me because, a lot of times, like I said, especially from my friends and stuff, people have literally tried to get me to change certain characters, and I've been like, nah, this is the way it was when I saw it. I can't help that. I'm not gonna change that. Like, for instance, the Dream Stowaway. Like, I've had people say, "Oh, this is such an amazing character, but he should be black," and I'm like, well, that's good that you think that way, but I'm not gonna change it. It's the way I saw him when I went to sleep that night, and I saw him on that sandboard with those two stars in front of him. I just saw him like that, and I'm not going to change it just to satisfy your need for that type of content. I can create content like that when it comes around, but to me, it feels like I'm almost like almost lying to the art
Mm,
because I saw it a certain way. And I feel like some people they really are so heartfelt and believe in what they believe that they would rather, not be associated with a really great project than to be more open minded about the fact that it doesn't matter what it is, it's the project that counts. So,
yeah.
that's one of the main reasons why that's a multicultural family in a Wish and a Wisp. And only some people have caught that. Like, that it is a multicultural family.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and the people that do are kind of like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't really put two and two together. And I'm like, yeah, you could literally tell that is.
I feel like that was like one of the first things that was very clear in the, the first minute, or, it was the brother, right? It's the brother and the
Yeah.
sister. It was like, oh, okay. So it's, a mixed race family. Like it seems very
Right.
evident. I don't know why that would go over people's heads. That's wild.
I know it's like it's so weird to me, but it also helps me at least to understand that this placement that we have, because like I said, I number two things. A lot of my projects are a lot of 80 based stuff, 80s based stuff, but cool stuff that we kind of remember, just like the Wish and the Wisp. Literally, the in my mind, if I could snap my fingers, I would pull Johnny Depp in a second to play the Wish.
Yeah.
Just absolutely murder that thing.
Hell yeah.
Just one more time. Just give us that good old performance one last time, Johnny, and then you can bail out, right?
Yeah.
But again, in my field, there aren't a lot of fantasy African American filmmakers. So a lot of times when I present this project to people, they're like, "We don't make films like this," and I'm like, "We don't? Like, since when? Like, okay, well, maybe we should." But again, the back and forth is always like, yeah, this isn't going to. I literally sent this to a very well known African American production house. I won't say the name. And they literally sent it back to me and said, you should submit this to Warner Brothers. This is a children's film. And I was like, it's not a children's film, dude. Like it's a fantasy film. These are actually a thing if you knew your film history. Like, but again,
it's multi-generational.
Absolutely 100%. And it kind of threw me off, because I'm like, if you do your history, some of the films that do the best in the theaters are family films or children's based films, right? Because you got to pay for more than one ticket.
Right.
Typically, dad's the one that's getting sent to take the kids there, and it's usually the kids and their friends. So you're talking about six tickets right there from just one family. So it's just like I'm not really sure where their idea where they get this idea that the only films that we can create are either stereotypical films or films that put us in this negative light. But I do believe that there's filmmakers like myself that are going to come up slowly up the ranks and are going to go against this weird thought pattern about what type of films we should make, and hopefully we'll be able to make them.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're already setting up the allegorical story in your kind of breaking through that glass ceiling with what we were saying earlier. You chose to go to Atlanta because it's the new, community of film where LA is this industry. And like we said, it's these cliques that are almost holding you out because, oh, you don't fit with us, or we don't want you to take away from what we've been working on and what we're doing, And so you said, fuck that. I'm gonna go over here and do it the way that I want to do it. So this same they're trying to pigeonhole you or say, no, you have to do it the way we want to. And you're just going to, flip them the bird and go, I'm going to continue doing it the way that I want to do and prove to y'all that you're wrong. Dude, that's what's up, because those are the ones that make waves like that are the ones that get remembered.
I appreciate it. That means a lot too. I'm glad. Thank you. I needed that.
So you've got another project coming up that you've been working on. I know we kind of been going a lot into like the stories and stuff like that. You've got another story that you're working on in comic book form. Is that right?
Pepper Piper?
Pepper Piper, yeah.
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Pepper. Absolutely. So it's funny because as I found myself in this kind of space where I have all these projects and I'm like, what to do? I kind of sat down and I was like, all right, well, I need to figure out what the next step is. And the only thing I could think of was comics. So I said, that's it. And this idea of this publishing company called Next Step Comics literally came to my mind. And I wanted to make a almost like a company that literally only created material for unspoken minorities. And with this company and with this idea that this is the next step to us getting material like this, or getting our own films or getting our comics, is going to be, it's going to be comics. So I kind of pondered, based on the people that I know, that the friends that I have, what type of comic book character did I want to put out, and Pepper Piper was literally the first thing I could think of. And some of the things that Pepper, or some of that, some of the people that Pepper resembles and has a likeness to are the people I grew up with, which is like your black punk and your black goths. Because I grew up actually as a punkster, as a goth, and no one knows what it's like to feel unrepresented or teased as a child than your punks and your goths, especially in the black community. So I wanted to have a character that was literally the one to say, it's cool, I'm doing it, and I'm still looking good while doing it.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, we're definitely looking forward to getting to get to check that out. Now, have you been doing, like, obviously you're writing the story. Are you doing the illustrations, and are you doing like the whole thing, like front to back, or are you bringing in, you know, author or illustrators and people to do the layout and all that?
So I've written the first 12 issues of it, and I have just connected with a illustrator that I'm really happy with. I kind of went through a couple of different illustrators that I felt like didn't really represent her the way that I wanted her to look, and I just finally found one actually about 2 days ago that really understood what we were going for visually, and this is the one that we're gonna move forward with. And
dope.
I'm really pleased.
You said you've done 12 issues of this already. Have you just tucked those to the side, or have you put them out?
Yeah, so they're just tucked to the side right now. We're working on issue number 1 currently right now. And after issue number 1 makes its release in 2023, we're just going to go straight through and just hit the rest of them all the way through.
Dang, that's such a badass way to do it, having that backlog. So that way it's just ready to go as soon as you need it, rather than having to be rushing for deadlines or pushing things down to the day. Like, bro, commend for that too. That's a smart business move when it comes to
art. I appreciate that. I have a lot of faith in her. I do. I really do.
When you're putting it together, so you wrote the story and then you finally got this design team. How are you doing it? Did you like try to market it and sell it to someone that would back you, or did you do like a Kickstarter or kind of like a crowdfund style to like raise some funds, or are you just all doing it all yourself?
So to be honest with you, I actually went through all 3 methods. The first method actually, it was a weird situation, because what I got from it was that they were like, well, we don't really feel like a character like this is going to do very well. And I was like, I'm not really sure that you're right about that. So
yeah,
it's kind of like
tough to hear.
Situation where it was almost like a low ball to kind of gain more ownership of the character.
Gotcha.
So that situation kind of didn't play out really well for me. The Kickstarter situation, I did decide to go for only because I wanted to get the first 3 issues out as quickly as possible. But in the end, I still have decided to at least get the first issue out myself. So the first issue will be self-funded. Issues 2, 3, and 4, we are going to do a Kickstarter for, but which actually I believe is still live right now. There's a Kickstarter for issues 2, 3, and 4 on Kickstarter at Pepper Piper Monster Hunter. So that was the plan for issues 2, 3, and 4, and then of course the remainder of the issues were just going to be all funded
through hopefully just sales of the first 4 and kind of getting it flowing that way.
Absolutely, because one of our things is we know because of the growth in Black punk and Black rock is how it's grown so much within our community with Afro punk. We're very sure that there will be a huge need for this character, and that is going to be a huge want for this character.
Oh yeah.
So there was no doubt in our mind that as long as we got some issues out that people could actually absorb, that they would jump right onto it.
Dude, there's no doubt. Just seeing the couple of pieces that you've done already, especially with the Wisp and the Wish, the writing there is there. So no matter what people choose to think about, you know, the illustration or who you are behind the character, like your writing is phenomenal, bro. And just the way that you're able to find that voice in those characters is it's really rad, dude. I'd have to commend you on that.
Oh yeah.
I appreciate that. I really wanted to anytime, and it's funny, like even with the multicultural family and the Wish and the Wisp, there's always someone I'm trying to at least speak for in some way, shape, or form whenever I create a film. So it's or whenever I create a work. So to have this one and to already know this group, to know how they were treated and how they didn't have someone to speak for them, and how they felt being isolated from society. It feels good to actually have somebody that they can go back through, like we talked about, for that time, and kind of just reminisce about what it was like, but have somebody that can at least go through that journey with them. It's funny. It's more like a journal than it is a comic, as you kind of grow with this girl and live her life.
That's rad. Yeah, you can really push it that way too, having an anthology of 12 issues already.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's funny too because she started off as a screenplay. She started off as a screenplay, so it was kind of like my nod to Marvel to say I can do this too.
Yeah. I got this.
But I wanted to give it a shot, and of course have her be this standout girl. And when I finished the screenplay, I was like, no, this is definitely this is a comic book character. She's a superhero. She needs to have a longer legacy than just a film.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I have to ask, just since you have that Spider-Man poster behind you, is Pepper Piper any ode to Peter Parker?
It's a good question. In my own personal belief, yes. Even though some people consider her to be a sassy, sexy teenage Deadpool.
Okay.
Told her to be. But yeah.
But some of the roots are down there deep in those Spider-Man universe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things I love most about Stan Lee, is it seems like that a lot of his characters always were deeply rooted with some type of issues, or just having to deal with growing pains or real life issues. Aside from all of the cinematic and great things that were happening around him. And
right.
I feel like that's something that I wanted to put inside this comic, was to give a person that actually was living life outside of having all of these other responsibilities of saving the world.
Dude, that's awesome. Well,
yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and tell everybody where the Kickstarter is, and then also about like your online presence, about where they can look at your art, definitely where they can check out Wisp and the Wish and all of that?
Absolutely. So you guys can go to YouTube and check out the Wish and the Wisp. You can find my channel. It's at Vashmere Valentine. Also, for information regarding Pepper Piper Monster Hunter, you can either Google Pepper Piper Monster Hunter, or this is going to be a tongue twister. So you can either Google Pepper Piper Monster Hunter or go to pepperpiper.com. You can also find Pepper Piper on Facebook under Pepper Piper Monster Hunter, or on Instagram at Pepper Piper Monster Hunter, or on Twitter at Pepper the Piper.
Hey. Oh, you did that like you practiced that, bro.
Pepper Piper picked a patch of pickled peppers.
Yeah. It'll kill you,
dude. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us, and giving us some of your time. It was super interesting, super awesome to hear your story, and kind of I don't know, just be able to relate on this level of like, I saw your work, and then when we talked about it was like, there's certain things that oh, that was kind of because of this, or there was the stems from our childhood and the generation we grew up in and stuff, because there was something so magical about it, man. I knew that we were like right there in like age or something. We had the same interest in that stuff. It was very evident.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man.
Well, we look forward, and especially once Pepper Piper gets moving, and you've got next issue, or once this Kickstarter gets going, we'd love to have you back and kind of focus a little bit more on that. And we definitely have some comic book heads that listen, and I think it would be really cool to give them a taste of like what you're doing and expose them to your work as well. So we'd love to have you back on here.
Oh, consider it done.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, man. Well, great. Best of luck to everything. Keep us updated. We're best friends now, so we'll be bugging you.
Yeah, if we can help you in any way, get distribution out through Ratnest or anything like that, please let us know too, man. We're happy to help.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you again for having me on. You guys have been a blast.
Thank you very much, Vashmere. It's great meeting you, man. A great interview.
Thank you.
Vashmere Valentine, everybody. All right, this has been another episode of the Ratnest Podcast. You can catch us every week on YouTube for the video and on any streaming platform for the audio. Check out ratneststickerco.com for comics, zines, books, prints, and more. Jim?
I'm Jim.
See ya. Oh, yeah, dude.